Hey everybody, it's Brian Shannon from alphatrends.net. Today is Friday, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2023. Hope you had a good day in the market this week. It was really very choppy. The Bitcoin was up 34% this week. We'll take a look at that again. Oil down 13%, the financials down 6%. You would have thought they'd be the big loser with all the headlines, but not the case. Semiconductors led the NASDAQ higher here. Actually, look at that. The NASDAQ, I didn't even realize it, was up more than the semiconductors, which is typically pretty unusual. But there was obviously a lot of strength in large cap tech. We'll take a look at some of those. The S&P 500 on the daily time frame is where we typically start this, so we'll do that here today as well. And you can see that we're right at where the high of the week, that is, came right at the 20-day moving average and very close to this, which is the anchored volume weighted average price for the year, that thick blue line. The purple line is the anchored VWAP off the 2023 high. So they all kind of come in together at that 398, 400 level, which indicates to me that it's likely going to be a difficult place for this market to overcome. When you just look objectively at the market since this high, what we see is we see a lower high and a lower low. And that is the case here still until we kind of do maybe something along the lines of that. In other words, maybe create an inverted head and shoulders pattern and then move higher. Looking over to the 15-minute time frame, this week, what happened in here was we were stuck below the declining 5-day moving average and this downtrend line. That downtrend line is something I drawn in and was updating throughout the week on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, I always say that you're missing out a lot of the free content that I put out if you're just looking at YouTube. And by the way, if you're looking at YouTube, please give it a like, subscribe to this channel and all that stuff. But we know as we broke that downtrend line in the 5-day moving average, we saw that sharp rally higher yesterday, but it failed here today. We did pay a dividend in the S&P 500, so it's not as bad as it looks, but we've just got a choppy mess basically in these in the SPY. The NASDAQ made it all the way up to the anchored volume weighted average price from the COVID low. So again, that COVID low anchored VWAP came into play back here and then once again now in the NASDAQ 100. And, we pulled back slightly from it today, but still a very impressive week, up over 5% for the week in the NASDAQ. And, some further pullback in here wouldn't be a surprise to me. Maybe next week, even maybe down towards that 5-day moving average before it's able to try to push through this level and then maybe make a run for the anchored VWAP from the all-time high. But, there's just so much uncertainty in this market that it's really difficult to have any confidence in any individual stocks. Apple, for instance, it's really looking like it wants to break resistance here and then maybe make a push higher from here. We've seen that, some of the bigger stocks like Meta, Meta made it through the anchored volume weighted average price from the all-time high. And that means that, this is the next level of interest to the upside. Now, I wouldn't be a buyer here because we've just run from 175 to 205. So that's a big rally. I think you need some further pullback consolidation in there. But again, Microsoft real big this week, as was Nvidia. Just a lot of strength, and I think money is just kind of hiding out in these stocks while the banking index continues to weigh on this S&P 500. So let's take a look at the banks. The XLF here, you can see just kind of what you would have expected based on the headlines. And we knew last week and even prior to that this market was starting to deteriorate. It was showing signs of weakness, and clearly it's broken down. Very similar to what we have been talking about in the energy names, that we've seen the lower highs coming down and beating on this band of support that broke, and the stocks gave up. I've been saying this for months that I thought that the easier money in the energy names has been made, and here you can see on the longer term chart that was an important breakdown there in the energy name. You could look at things like a trend line maybe that looks like this and say, wow, we've even broken that. But if we look at back to the anchored volume weighted average price from this low, you can see that has been important on a couple of occasions. So maybe maybe it's going to drop all the way down towards that level, which is about 72. Now, I don't think it would happen, let's say, next week. I think it would take a couple weeks, maybe even do something like this, and then start to drift lower as these longer term moving averages come down and, are all turning lower and provide resistance. So I think that energy is, the story's over there for a while at least. Don't be, complacent with those names. Certainly, it was a wake-up call for longs in this sector this past week. Back to the financials, though, what's going to turn these things around, I think, is time. It's going to take a lot of time for people to regain the confidence in the banks. I would definitely not be looking to buy the dip in these things. If you're a day trader, that's one thing. There's opportunities in there if you're an experienced and skilled day trader. You can look at this and say, well, is that going to be support? And maybe it is, but I think it's a case of still, if they didn't scare you out, they're now going to continue to wear you out. And it wouldn't surprise me that if we do something like this down the road, it's still going to take, as I said, a lot of time for this market to recover because the confidence is really shaken in there. And, when stocks cut dividends, some funds have the requirement that they can only be owners of stocks that pay dividends. So they have to sell regardless of what they think the stock might be doing down the road. So just be careful of those types of things. There's just not strength there, so there's no reason to be looking in that group. The semiconductors, however, have been the strong group, as we noted, and throughout the year they've been holding this anchored volume weighted average price from the beginning of the year, minus one day last week when we dipped below it, but quickly recovered. And now you can see we're at but very close to new highs for the year. So let's look at the weekly time frame. This is a bullish look here. You've got the anchored VWAP from that all-time high in there, and we're closing above it still. We're above the year-to-date VWAP. We're above the rising 10, 20, 30, 40-week moving average. And that's why, that's a result of stocks like AMD breaking beyond their all-time high anchored volume weighted average price. Nvidia, same story. AMAT is one that is getting going in here as well. This one looks like it has room to run. So let's take a look real quick at Bitcoin, because that was the big one. Now, last week, if you recall, I said, it looks like it's going to try to find buyers along the anchored VWAP from last year's low. It, in fact, found buyers there and just ripped higher. I definitely did not expect this to happen. In fact, I don't own any Bitcoin. I haven't for some time. Maybe things are turning in here longer term. Here's where we, if we look at the weekly, or I'm sorry, we'll still look at the daily chart, but the anchored VWAP off the all-time high is where this market might continue up towards. That's about 29.5. So great strength in there for now. And you just can't deny the strength that's there, or in some of these other areas, such as gold, which is now had a great week as well. I don't really trade gold, but I own some, so it's nice to see. But next week, I think we're going to see more of the same, and that is just a lot of a lack of confidence in the market, which is going to lead to a very choppy market trading environment.